podcasts.
Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Herman.
Good morning and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I am your host, Lois Herman, and I hope to inspire you with positive messages and help by celebrating everyday people who are making a difference in our world. When we focus our thoughts, our energies, and our emotions on what we love to do, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower everyone around us. If we each do what we can to make small shifts in awareness, from kindness to healthy habits and simple happiness, we create ripples of hope. Join us as catalysts for positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you are inspired by today's show. And happy Easter, everyone. Happy spring. It's a different Easter this year. Easter 2020 will always be remembered as a different kind of Easter. I hope you have your Easter bonnet on. I brought mine. It fits a little weird on my head, but it's still, you know what? It's Easter. And how you remember this Easter will depend on your perspective, your view of life. If you're angry and fearful and worried, you might see this in a negative light. If you're celebrating more time with your family, with less pressure, you might see this as a more relaxing and peaceful time. It's definitely a different time. Because of being in isolation, we won't be having those large Easter egg hunts in the park. Yet, I actually remember as a child living in military quarters, growing up in quarters, and our egg hunts often consisted of hiding. The Easter Bunny used to hide. Remember those little colorfully foiled chocolate eggs? That was the egg hunt that they were tucked in and around the house, and of course, then weeks or months later, we'd find them, stuck in the cracks of the couch, or buried in plants, and so anyway, that you just get creative. You've just got to be creative. And so for those who are going to church, it won't be necessary to, getting dressed up to watch TV, services on TV. Yet, what can you do to make this day special? So my husband and I send out Easter cards to our family, and this year, because of the quarantine, we we decided to repurpose. So we found cards that were ones that we would never, they were kind of odd cards, and sent them saying, "From our quarantine house to yours, these are official, shelter-in-place cards." And with Kurt's aunt, he actually sent her, he returned her Christmas card she sent to us. And she said, "Hey, that was a great card." He says, "Of course, you picked it." You sent it. So, hey, let's don't take this quite so seriously. We need to lighten up, because we will get through this. So the other thing is, as far as Easter dinner, I usually make a big ham dinner with all the trimmings. And this year it's like, okay, what can we find in the freezer? So we've got this mission to go through some of those old freezer burned things and canned goods. I actually the other night made tuna noodle casserole for the first time in decades with gluten-free noodles, but I had all the ingredients for tuna noodle casserole. I'm like, okay, well, we're doing this. So, just get inspired to be creative and do things a little bit differently. We have to get out of our comfort zone. We don't like change. People don't like change. And that's part of the concern that people are having right now, that people who are in fear, this is not normal. This is not our usual, but it's okay. We'll get back to a new normal. We're doing a reset. I know people who are dusting off those old board games, and they're playing games every night with family, or pulling out the old photo albums and actually going through and remembering past Easters where, my mother used to every Easter would make us these frilly dresses with our little white gloves and always had an Easter bonnet. But go back and look at those old pictures and remember. This is a good time to remember and get back to storytelling. We've lost the art of storytelling. So start to tell stories about what the Easters used to be like so that we can remember. So use this as a time of remembering. And, even if you start creating your own new digital photo albums, it's different. I used to love getting the pictures in the mail and putting them in the album. And I have those old photo albums that we haven't looked at in forever. That would be a really fun thing to do, is pull them out. And the other thing is getting us... we're supposed to be sheltered in space or sheltered in place, but that doesn't mean we have to stay in our home. We can go out in our yard. Most people have some sort of a yard. Go out and play in your yard. Do some things in your yard. I've actually noticed my husband and I have been doing some walking, and we live kind of in a rural community, so we don't encounter too many people. But I do notice there are more kids playing catch with their parents outside, which I think is heartwarming. Instead of going off and doing, all these sports and athletics, they're actually interacting with family, which, this is great. We're getting back to that Mayberry feel, if you will, that those of us that are old enough to remember, that everybody just knew him as Andy of Mayberry, but it was a simpler life. So this is causing us to get back into simplicity. And some are learning a new skill. I actually have a friend that's learning to knit. So you can actually get it on YouTube and get instructions on how to knit or crochet, but learning a new skill. And thank God for Amazon, because if you need to order something, you can. But I have to laugh. This weekend is my annual wardrobe exchange. So I did pull out my hats, but you know what I got to do with my shoes? And I actually decided not to wear them, but I had to switch from the winter slippers to the spring slippers. And I had a pair of shoes, but I put them on and my feet were like, oh no, we can't do this. We're used to, slippers. And so I've got my trusty dusty boots on. But, things are simpler this year, and we may not go back to our old complex patterns, because it's important to decide what is important. And you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 5090. And did you know that spring is a time of renewal, of rebirth and regrowth? Do you know that Easter actually takes its name from the goddess Ostern, who was the goddess of birth, regrowth, and fertility? So hence the eggs and the bunnies are the hares. So, and it's celebrated based on her feast day, which is usually the first Sunday after the full moon, after the spring equinox. So that's why Easter is always on a different day every year. But during this time, it's also the time of resurrection, of Jesus' resurrection, of restarting again, renewal. That was what he spoke of. This is a time to come from a place of kindness, of compassion, of seeing each other through eyes of true brotherly love. What was his strongest message? Do unto others as you would have them do to you. That message has not been lost, and that's what we need to do at this point in time. Do what you feel in your heart needs to be done. And this is also a time for Passover, where people in the Jewish faith are looking at their history of what their ancestors have gone through for years. What we're going through right now is weeks, if not months. This is not years. Yes, it may take some of us years to recover, but again, it's a blip in the eon of time. So during this time of isolation, seize the opportunity to embrace change. I know we don't like change, but take a moment to focus on what you want to learn, what you want to embrace, what you want to shift and grow into. Use this time for introspection, for prayer, for meditation. Slow down a little bit. Many are holding on to fear and worry. And yes, there are a lot of people who are sick or who have lost loved ones, who are fearful in isolation, fearful of their finances. And there's a lot of things to be afraid of or afraid for. What I invite my clients to do, take all of those fears and worries, put them in a bottle, a bubble, a bowl, or a basket, and hand them to the loved one who can help take them, be it Jesus, be it an angel, be it your sweet grandmother who's passed over. Have them take it away. We are not in this alone. We have invisible helpers, and we have our community of helpers. Reach out to someone to help shift those fears so that you can think of all the wonderful things you have in your life, in your world. So think of all the good you have. And as you quiet your fears, as you release them, you will feel a peaceful presence and be able to relax, knowing that everything will work out better than we could ever anticipate. We're going to be fine if we just take the time to replenish ourselves right now. We will get through this stronger, wiser, and more focused on the good in our lives. We're going to emerge together. And you know, there are a lot of good things that are happening, especially with our precious planet, Mother Gaia. I read, did you know, Art, that people in India are able to see the Himalayas from their homes for the first time in 30 years. They're all going out of their homes, taking pictures, going, oh my gosh, right there, this gorgeous mountain range that's been so covered in pollution for so long. And now they're actually able to see it. So there are good things happening. My curiosity wonders if we're going to have less devastating hurricanes this year because the pollution and the air quality changes have happened as a result, a side effect of all this positive. So as you take a time to focus on the positive, your energy shifts, your health shifts. Be sure to limit yourself to small doses of the negative news to prevent it from destroying your mind-body-spirit connection. Because when our energy is depleted, our body becomes more vulnerable to sickness of any kind. And I want to introduce to you now a wonderful, wonderful friend, an expert in the world of mind-body-spirit medicine. My dear friend and colleague at the New Hampshire Health and Wellness Center is a naturopathic doctor, a licensed acupuncturist, and a Qigong teacher. I'm honored to place my health in her competent yet tender and gentle hands, and I'm blessed to call her friend. May I introduce my dear friend, Dr. Laura Chen. Laura, are you there? She's there. Are you talking, Laura? We usually we have a guest in the studio with us, and because of this, the isolation, Art and I are the only ones allowed in the studio. So Laura gets to call in from home. So as Art's getting her back on the phone, let's see if she'll be able to talk with us. She's at home with a sweet little guy that Theo is her son. So let's. Can we hear Laura now? She can't hear us. Well, while Art is busily getting Laura connected with us, I would like to invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Unless you're driving, of course. Keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes open. And take a moment to put down what you're doing and take a breath with me. Take a gentle breath deep into your belly. Hold it for a few seconds. And as you exhale, relax. Again, inhale peace deep into your belly and exhale relaxation. As you focus on your breathing, relax your shoulders, relax your neck, your jaw, and let your face relax. And take a moment anytime you start to feel stressed and just breathe. Notice that one muscle in your body that's the most tensed, and breathe into it and let it relax. Ask your body what it needs for you to do, and if you pay attention, if you quietly listen, your body will tell you. Acknowledge what is needed. Pay attention, listen, and make a commitment to yourself to take action, even if it means giving yourself permission to slow down, to breathe, to meditate, to pray. And I think we've got Laura here with us now. So as you are in this wonderful place of peace and serenity, think of all the things that you are grateful for. A safe place to call home, food on the table, beloved family and friends, our precious pets, the beauty of nature around us, music to uplift us. Be thankful, be grateful. And is Laura there with us now?
Hi, Lois. Good morning. And
Good.
Happy Easter.
Good morning, Laura. Happy Easter. Happy Easter. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. I just was listening to your blessing there, and I have my cat sitting purring on my lap here, sitting in stillness. So it's a nice start to the day.
Yes, the cats are Zen masters, I call them. They know. We could learn a lot from them about, okay, it's time to relax, stretch, yoga pose,
Absolutely.
relax. Yeah. So would you please tell everybody about you, a little bit about your background? I've introduced you as a naturopathic doctor and an acupuncturist. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be and do what you do, what you're so passionate about.
Sure, I'd love to. So I always wanted to go into medicine ever since I was a little girl. I felt like it was a strong calling. And the only path I knew was the conventional path because, like many of us, that's what I grew up used to. And then when I was in high school and college, I started suffering from some chronic ailments that were difficult to both diagnose and treat. Some of the diagnoses I had by my early 20s included chronic Lyme disease and irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue, and fibromyalgia. Needless to say, I didn't feel great in my early 20s. And out of desperation, I ended up going to a naturopathic doctor who also recommended an acupuncturist. And those providers were the only ones who were ultimately able to help me. And it was through many different types of modalities, which I can get to in a minute. But that experience profoundly changed the way that I understood my body, and I understood healing, and I understood the potential of healing and wellness for a human being, and it changed my direction. I chose to go and study those modalities and to become a naturopathic doctor and an acupuncturist because I wanted to learn what had worked for me. So I went to school for 6 years out in Seattle and now have my naturopathic doctorate degree and my acupuncture license, and I'm so grateful for that training. It's been such a joy to be able to pay it forward, so to speak, with the skill set that I learned. So basically I'm a type of primary care provider, but with a more holistic and integrative approach. So I've learned and now use in my practice a lot of nutrition and nutritional support, maybe some herbal remedies, acupuncture, a lot of counseling, stress management, a lot of lifestyle techniques. There's just a really strong philosophy with getting to the root cause of illness rather than just managing symptoms.
And you do prescribe meds if you need to.
I do prescribe meds if need to. Yep.
Yeah, and I know that as a naturopathic doctor, you really do look at the whole picture of the person, not just the specific symptom. You really dive in. I know as my doctor, one of the things that I find that's unique and different about seeing you or speaking with you is there's this eye-to-eye focused contact. You really get me. You listen with deep intent, and that's a precious and rare opportunity when your physician really listens to you. And I don't know whether that's just you because of who you are, or whether that's also part of that whole natural approach to life is to truly embrace the patient, the client.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Lois, and I don't know to what extent it's who I am versus part of my training. I think it's a combination. But I will say the other, my colleagues who are also naturopathic doctors tend to be quite good at that. And it is part of our training. I remember a teacher of mine really emphasizing that we, the provider, and that would include many different professions, but we are the medicine. It's not just what we do or what we prescribe or what the treatment plan is. It's really that human-to-human interaction can be very therapeutic. And so I take that very seriously, and I think a huge part of my job is to really listen. And people often tell me how grateful they are to be heard and to really have time to express themselves, and for someone to say, oh, wow, that sounds like it's been a really difficult experience, because that's often very true. And then to think of myself more as a guide and a companion on their journey for wellness too. And they're often looking for someone to walk with them and be with them and be a support through their challenges.
And that's very true, because oftentimes the natural approach to healing takes a little bit more effort and control. It's the onus is put on the patient to change their lifestyle, their eating habits, their different practices. It's not simply take this pill and you're better. So there's a bit of trial and error that goes along with it, shall I say?
Yes, absolutely. And I chuckle with your mention of effort, because it's true. I like to joke with my patients that I don't usually give simple treatment plans. There's often a fair amount of homework involved, but we come to that plan together to make sure that it's doable for the person, for their lifestyle and where they are currently. I think it's so important to meet people where they are, and so all of my recommendations are very individualized, which is part of the philosophy, is really personalized medicine.
Exactly. I know you refer a lot of your patients to me for hypnosis who are dealing with extreme stress, anxiety, addictive patterns, and we work together as a team to help shift them.
Yes, and I love that. Teamwork to me is so important in medicine, because no one of us has all the tools or all the answers, and people need a lot of support sometimes, a lot of different modalities to help them move through whatever it is they're struggling with. And so often that involves stress management and emotional well-being support.
And what do you do for yourself to keep yourself healthy and inspired?
Oh, that's a great question. I've found that to be really necessary in this work. Part of learning my self-care was through my own experience of illness that I mentioned earlier. And I've really found that doing daily, if not or weekly, self-care practices are essential. And so often that looks like some form of physical movement, whether it's going for walks or exercise. And then for me, I've really found great benefit in doing energetic practices. And so that can look like yoga sometimes, but my great love is Qigong. And Qigong is it's in the martial art family, but it's not a fighting martial art. It's what we would call an internal martial art, where you learn to move the energy and strengthen the energy in your own body. So the word qi is the Chinese word for our vital energy or our vital force that's in our body. And it's what gets treated from a practitioner who's doing acupuncture. And then the word Gong means to move. So in a Qigong practice, you learn to strengthen and move the energy in your own body. And I have learned this practice, and I've been dedicated to it mostly because of the tremendous benefits that I found in myself from learning to practice it. For me, I used to be a pretty chronic insomniac, and learning a Qigong practice and utilizing it before bed was just about the only thing I ever tried that could consistently help me sleep. And we know how important sleep is and relaxation. So I'm a pretty disciplined practitioner these days because I see the daily benefits of it.
And I've taken classes with you, and they're amazing. one of the things to explain to people is that Qigong is breath work. So it's not like moving your body. It's different than yoga where you're doing a lot of postures. This is more breathing and focused inward awareness of your body and of your breathing in a very deliberate, focused way. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. That is correct. It can even be done by people who are in a wheelchair, for instance, because there's breath work and internal focus on moving the awareness around your body. We say that energy follows thought. So if you move your intention in certain ways through your body, the energy will do that. So I like to explain it sometimes as learning to do acupuncture on yourself with your breath and with your awareness.
And exactly what...
With no needles.
Which is a nice thing for some people.
Yes.
One of the things that you just said is what ties in with what I was mentioning earlier. All of this fear thought that people are having now with the COVID-19 situation, the fear is causing internal distress. You and I actually had a webinar a couple of weeks ago that was all about boosting your immune system during this time, and it was wonderful. You're actually listening right now to Lois Herman, Inspiring Hope. I'm here with Dr. Laura Chen on WSMN 1590. I'm here every Sunday morning with a very special guest each week. Dr. Chen and I did a webinar that you can see the whole thing. It's free. It's downloadable, or it's not downloadable. You can observe it, view it at my YouTube channel. You can get there by loisherman.com. And we spent quite a bit of time. We actually did a little bit of Qigong there. And you talked about the different acupressure points that you can do to help calm and release fear and worry. And there were a lot of tips there, because the more fear-based we are, the more tense we are, the less healthy we are.
Absolutely, Lois. Just, I've been doing some telemedicine while we're all under stay-at-home orders, and a lot of what I've been talking to my patients about are self-care strategies that they can do at home, whether it is acupressure points or if people are trained in self-Reiki or meditation or even journaling or prayer. Really whatever brings relaxation and inspiration to people, because I'm finding many people are glued to the news, which has not been uplifting or inspiring for people, and so I'm just recommending ways that people resonate with to step away from that and really connect with something that's joyful in their own life.
And now that spring is here, stepping into nature and going for a walk. I know a lot of the Oriental practices, they actually do Tai Chi outside to truly embrace the energy of nature.
Yes. I love to do my practice outside, and if I can't because it's cold or dark or rainy, I usually close my eyes and picture myself in nature and try to feel or bring that memory into my body of what it feels like to be near a waterfall or something like that.
Exactly. I often ask my clients where is their favorite place in nature, and I want to say probably 90% of them say the beach. And it's very easy to imagine the sunshine and the smell and all of that, and you can just transport yourself there in your mind. And it's very valuable. If you were to take your blood pressure or your pulse rate before and after, it is amazing how it will physiologically shift your being just by your thoughts.
It's amazing. You're really the expert in that, Lois, but I see it too as you can use the power of your mind to change your physiology, and whether it's a visualization or with you through hypnosis, it's extraordinary, and it's such an important tool for people right now.
Exactly, and right now, if people are sitting there feeding themselves on all the fear thought, then that's all they see is this trajectory of fear that is going to affect them. If they can shift, even and imagine, what will my life be after this is when we come out of this seclusion, where I think my life is going to be different. There's so many different things that I am finding that I am cherishing now that I took for granted before. And so I will definitely adopt some new processes, new patterns, new habits because of this. And if I can look forward with hope and with opportunity, it's a different perspective, and it helps me to stay in a place of groundedness and hopefulness.
I completely agree, Lois. I've been thinking a lot, too, about ways that this experience can shift me and my practice, and I'm hoping much of the world is taking this time to have more stillness and reflection, because it's a great opportunity we have here.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, this radio show is called Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman. I'm here today with Dr. Laura Chen. She's a naturopathic doctor, a licensed acupuncturist, and a Qigong trainer. And tell us a little bit about acupuncture, Dr. Chen. What is, when do you use that versus your other, how does that dovetail in with the naturopathic approach that you take?
It's a great question. So oftentimes people come to me and they're really seeking one or the other because they've been referred to one or the other modality, or they've had a friend who tried one or the other. And so sometimes people are self-selecting when they come in and they have a request or preference. But often I will take someone's history and assess what their concerns are, and then we decide together whether in that first visit we might want to proceed with doing an acupuncture treatment, or whether it would be more appropriate for us to really do a longer intake and start with talking about their diet, nutrition, and lifestyle. But either way, some people really do end up choosing both therapies. Acupuncture is most well known for its management of pain, oftentimes back pain or knee pain, but it's really extraordinary for many other concerns or conditions that people don't often think about. So, for instance, stress and anxiety. Acupuncture is incredible for helping support people with feelings of stress and anxiety in their body, insomnia, hot flashes, digestive complaints, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty remarkable therapy for that. It does involve the placement of very fine needles through the skin into the muscles. I often tell people that the needles are like smaller than cat whiskers, because that seems less scary than a needle. It's very different than needles that are used for shots.
Absolutely.
And so it creates a sensation of gentle movement in the body, which is that qi that I was talking about before. I was talking about Qigong. And often the treatment takes about an hour, and it just really shifts people. It shifts the nervous system and shifts their physiology. It shifts their mental state. And people often feel so much more relaxed and better afterwards. It can be pretty immediate, though sometimes several treatments are needed to really shift a situation.
I know I became intrigued by Oriental medicine back in the mid-90s. I was telling Dr. Chan earlier that I used to travel a lot as a systems designer, and I spent the equivalent of a month in Taiwan at the Veterans General Hospital, where they had the latest and greatest Western technology. They had the cutting-edge CT scan, MRI, and I was there. This is in mid-90s. I was on the design team with an ultrasound system where we were diagnosing capillary-based flow in tissue, and so this was the first ever. And while I was there, the lead doctor brought in a patient that had a very large mass on his kidney, and we looked at it and we could determine that it was indeed blood fed, and he was very impressed with the fact that we could do that with ultrasound. So I asked him afterwards, what will you do with this patient? He said, we will send him down the hall to the Chinese medicine doctor, who will balance this gentleman's kidneys, and the mass will reduce in size. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
And that's really reflective of integrative medicine at its finest.
Absolutely. Yes. And then I
I had a
saw
very
this.
similar. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Let me just finish. I'm sorry. I saw the same doctor about 6 months later at the big RSNA in Chicago, and I asked him about the patient. And he said, yes, we rescanned the patient with ultrasound, and the mass is now 1/4 the size. Had this been a patient in the American system, unfortunately, he would have been biopsied, CT, and surgery, had surgery. So
Right.
they chose a holistic, gentle, less invasive approach and got a much better, ultimate outcome. So yeah, that led me into that intriguing, I want to learn more about this. So yeah,
Right.
what was your experience, Dr. Chan?
Well, it's just to reflect on your experience. It's nice to know that there's not the only choice is surgery, and even though that's needed sometimes,
Absolutely.
and it really can save lives and is essential, it's nice to know that it doesn't have to always be the only choice. I had a similar experience as you did. In 2006, I had the opportunity to be part of a research project in South Korea where we were evaluating a certain hospital in Seoul and how it was symbolic of this new integrative model where Western-trained medical doctors were the main diagnosticians in the hospital. So they were doing the MRIs and the X-rays. And then the main practitioners who were doing treatments were doing more acupuncture and spinal manipulations and herbs and nutrition. And so it was this very unique integrative model. But in spending 2 weeks in this hospital, it was extraordinary to see the results they were getting and how satisfied the patients were with their experience. It was really cool to see and very inspiring.
Truly integrative medicine, as you said, it's not, it's complementary, it's not alternative. These cultures dovetail. They use the latest and greatest technology for diagnosis and for surgery as well when it's needed. However, their historic culture embraces the holistic approach to healing, and it makes
Absolutely.
me wonder if that may be part of this is just my putting the dots together, why the people are recovering more quickly in Korea. Are they using the ancient Chinese or the ancient Oriental medicines to help them heal versus the people who are struggling more over a longer period of time in Italy, for instance?
Right. It's a great question, Lois. I think that in what I saw in South Korea is that they're really drawing on the strengths of what we would call Western medicine and traditional medicine or ancient traditions. And without seeing research come out yet, but what I've heard anecdotally is that in South Korea, for instance, it's much more integrated into people's lifestyles to use herbs and to have really excellent nutrition, and that is likely a factor why they're recovering more from COVID than in other countries.
Interesting.
Yeah, so time will tell. I'll be curious to see more information come out on that.
Absolutely. And this is part of what you had told us on the webinar. Here are some herbs you can take. Here's some food you should be eating to boost your immune system. You gave us all that information. You also had a wonderful article that you published in, what is your website, Dr. Chan, that people can read your article, because it was rich with that information.
Thank you. I have a website. It's drlaurachan.com, DrLaurachan.com. And I have a blog post about some thoughts about nutrition and lifestyle support to help with the immune system during this COVID crisis.
And you also have some of the Qigong. You're doing some online Qigong classes. You also have a class scheduled in June. Is that correct?
That is correct. At this point, it's supposed to be an in-person class in June. I'm hoping that we're in a state where that can be in person. If we have to move it to online, we will. But I really do enjoy teaching in person, so that's my great hope. So I do have that information on the website right now for anybody who may be interested in taking that class or signing up for it.
Wonderful. And I wanted to ask you, what inspires you? The theme of this show is about inspiring people. Who inspires you? What inspires you? And how would you inspire others right now?
I love that question. So some of the greatest inspirations in my life have been, I would say, my teachers and then time in nature. So I feel blessed to have some of the most incredible teachers, from my great acupuncture mentor to my Qigong master, who taught me all I know about my Qigong practice and the philosophy, to a wonderful Native American shamanic teacher I studied under for a while, and then some of my naturopathic mentors. And what impresses me the most about these people I call my mentors is how dedicated they are to their own self-care and wellness, and how dedicated they are to really experiencing joy and gratitude in their lives, and a connection with something that's greater than them in the world. And that doesn't have to be a certain religion, but it's really just connecting with what we might call an energy that's greater than us. And so all the people I've found really inspiring are fairly disciplined in this practice, and in doing so, they seem to really cultivate so much joy and happiness and well-being in their own life, and then have become teachers to be able to share that. So I really aspire to that in my own life, to really continue with my own learning on myself and with myself, and with working with others, and to continue to pay forward the learning and teaching that has come my way, to help inspire others so that they can help inspire others and continue this pay it forward process of wellness. And then for me, time in nature has also been so necessary and inspiring. As I was saying earlier, if it's not a nice day out and I'm doing my Qigong practice, I like to really picture myself in places I've been in nature. For me, I've had the blessings of some times to be really alone in nature. Even here in New Hampshire, a couple summers ago, I went for an overnight backpack by myself, and I encountered a moose. I was just by myself on the trail walking one way, and it was walking towards me, and I still can feel the adrenaline rush from that moment of how thrilling it was. And it felt like such a blessing from the universe to have that interaction. And I almost giggled to myself thinking that, okay, there I was alone with this moose, but I wasn't really alone, because I just felt the blessing of the universe around me with that. And to connect with that memory and that feeling, that power of being in nature is always inspiring to me.
And that's what Rosemary was talking about last week. She goes out and she meets these animals in the wild and captures the essence of their energy, their power. And she has done, I thought of you when I was speaking with her last week, because she has gone out and met polar bears and grizzly bears. And you have a fabulous grizzly story. Are you willing to share your story on air? Oh my goodness, it's wonderful.
I'd love to share that story. I'll make it a little bit more brief, but my husband and I went backpacking in Wyoming. I think it was in 2016, and it was an area that I was familiar with from having worked out there several summers. And we knew that it was grizzly country, so we were carrying bear spray with us. But I had been there many times and had never seen a grizzly bear, so I wasn't very concerned. But my husband, it turns out, we joke that he has bear medicine, because he always attracts bears to him whenever he's in nature. So he was convinced we were going to see one, and I was teasing him the whole time, telling him that he was just being paranoid. But it turns out he was right. And one morning we woke up and we were having our breakfast, and I looked out over the fields that we were camped in. We were under some trees at the edge of the field, and there was a large grizzly bear just happily loping its way towards us, having a spring frolic. Actually, it was summer. It was a summer frolic. And we immediately retreated to the highest ground we could, which was this rock next to a little stream. We had our bear spray, and unfortunately forgot to grab my camera in the haste. And this bear made its way over to our campsite about maybe 20 yards from where we were on the rock, and it just started playing in our campground, and did a belly flop on our tent and was sniffing everything, and then looked over at where we were, almost paralyzed with a feeling of fear at this point, being that close to a grizzly bear. And meanwhile, I was reading the label on the bear spray can because in case we had to use it, because now the bear was getting curious in us, now that it had flattened our tent. And so I'm reading it, and it says, when the bear is charging at you, start spraying the spray when it's about 8 seconds away from you. And I thought, oh, geez, I don't know if I can do that. So I turned to my husband and said, I don't think these instructions are helpful. Let's just start praying, because I remembered one of my teachers saying, if you encounter grizzly in the woods, just say your prayers. So I started asking for protection from Archangel Michael to be all around us, and I was doing this sort of chant to ask Archangel Michael to be around us, and my husband joined in, and as we were saying this prayer and this invocation, we felt stronger, we felt bigger, we felt more empowered. It might have just been this feeling in our voice came, and the bear was watching us the entire time. And finally, I think we just got bigger in our presence as we felt stronger, continuing to say this prayer. And it just got a little bored and then wandered off. And we had adrenaline coursing through our veins the entire day. And believe it or not, we saw 4 more grizzly bears that night after we hiked out. They were further away from us that time, but I have learned now when I go out into the woods with my husband to be prepared in every way possible.
Yes, and I love that story, and you tell it so well. And it actually, I have to say that it segues kind of into the next question that I'd like to ask you. You were one of the first readers of Chronicles of Hope, and the Chronicles of Hope, we are one of the foundations. I'm finishing book 2 now, but the foundations is to invoke, just like you did. Whatever the prayer is, it does not matter what denomination, but if you ask for assistance, it will be there. And that's a classic example of feeling protected and empowered. And as you get out of that fear and shift into the energy of empowerment, everything shifts, everything changes, and that's the foundation of the Chronicles. So just to segue, you're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman, and I'm speaking with Dr. Laura Chen. And Dr. Chen, could you tell us just a little bit about your thoughts? You have not read book 2 yet, but you were one of the first readers of book 1. If you have anything to share, please.
Oh, yes, thank you. Well, I loved it, Lois, and I hope that your listeners will pick the book up and read it, because it really is inspiring. I think for me, it helped gel, so to speak, or help validate some thoughts that I've had about the world, but have been kind of nebulous or difficult to put my finger on. And your writing and your powerful experience of what happened in your practice that you chronicle was so validating. It really helped me clarify some of what I sense about hope or the possibility of the future of the world. But I didn't have a voice or a image or a description for it. And your book really helps to clarify it and give more detail and give more validation to what we really can hope for and what we really can do to help create a positive shift in the world.
Thank you. And I'm excited to be able to share book 2. Book 1 was more of a sounding of an alarm. This is what happens. This is what's happening, guys, if you guys don't shift now. But book 2 is the remedy. It's the salve. It's here's what you need to do step by step. I mean, we had a session with Jesus, and it was so powerful. And his message was, again, of brotherly love. Get back to kindness, compassion, be sensitive to one another. We had a session with Mother Gaia, who again says, you are all one. You are all connected. You are all interconnected. What you do affects everyone around you in some way. You're all energetic beings, and you need to be aware that actions you take will have results. And we're seeing that. We're absolutely seeing that with the COVID-19 situation, where we are all forced into seclusion or into isolation, into this shutdown mode, which means our planet, Mother Gaia, is having an opportunity to heal herself. And that's what she absolutely says in this chapter, in the session, is just give me a chance. I can heal, but you have to stop your pollution. You have to stop the toxic things you're doing. I can heal my body. Just give me an opportunity. And that, to me, I'm looking at this book, getting it out. It's in edit mode right now. We're almost finished, but I'm excited to get it out there because it's coming out at a time where people need this to help shift their awareness into what they can do to recover from this stressful situation and move into a different awareness of a different civilization that is based on unity consciousness.
Well, I can't wait to read book 2, Lois, because I loved book 1, and if book 2 does include more information about solution, well, I will be happily one of the first readers if I may, or I'll pick it up as soon as I can. I can't wait.
I would invite you to give me a review as soon as I get it back. It's about to go to the publisher for final review, but it's still in my quality review team, and I would love to have you. If there's anybody else that would like to do a review, I would welcome that, and I'm excited to get it out there. But Dr. Chan, it speaks exactly to what you're talking about. You're right. There really is nothing new here. It validates what many people already know. It gives that credibility that, oh, okay, I am on the right path. It gives more of a positive encouragement for people who are on that holistic path versus those that are kind of walking in with blinders on. Those are the ones that need to wake up a little bit, and they are waking up. So this is a recipe, or the first book was a roadmap. This one is more of a guidelines for living. So people like you.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, I'm excited to put it in your hands. So are there any last suggestions you would have to help others stay upbeat and inspired?
Well, I briefly want to speak to what you said about the earth healing herself as we all slow down. What I noticed on a very individual level working with patients is exactly that, is that when you remove what's toxic for people in their lives, whether it's food or stress or actual toxins from the environment, the body will heal itself. And it's so exciting to see a global representation of that now. I think it's hard for us to wrap our minds around it without it actually happening so that we can see it. So you're right. I think it's really an extraordinary experience to be alive right now and be able to witness what's happening.
Yes, and we have just less than a minute left, and I know you had a wonderful quote that I'd love for you to share, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, I'd love to. I honestly don't know who said this first, so I can't give credit to the right person, but I repeat it a lot to my patients, and it's, blessed are the young, for they have a long way to go. Blessed are the old, for they have come a long way. And blessed are the ones in between, for they are doing all the work. And I say that often to my patients because I mostly work with the people who are in the in-between age, and they're tired,
yes.
They're worn out, and they are doing a lot of work caring for young and old and in their lives, and literally going to work and doing the work and managing a household. And it's wearing people out.
And so what we need to do is inspire them. You do that in your practice. I appreciate that. And my goal is to inspire people with this show. You have been listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman and my precious guest, Dr. Laura Chen. I'm here every Sunday morning, and I also have a show on Wednesday evening where I'm actually reading the Chronicles of Hope. Tune in. Meanwhile, look up, Stay positive and be the light in someone's day. God bless. Happy Easter.